A close friend of mine is being threatened with adult videos as revenge. Little does the person know, I am an attorney. My very good friend made some slightly dumb mistakes and sent some pictures to someone that she reasonably thought she could trust. But not knowing much more than his first name, his screen name, and roughly where he lived and the type of work he did, he is not in our country, but had indicated that he would be traveling for work to go near us shortly, and that he had made some plans to meet. And when she got some red flags and backed out, the dude threatened to publish these pictures online. I am incidentally an attorney. So, some searching later and gathering up any pictures he sent her of him that could possibly identify him. His online handle led me to a TikTok page, which led me to an Instagram page with his name on it. That led to a LinkedIn page with his place of work that matched a picture he sent with a branded polo he was wearing. Some more research got me the email of the CEO, VP of HR, operations manager, and public relations manager. So, I just fired off an email on behalf of my client of the screenshots of him threatening to leak the adult videos, as well as snippets of the conversation showing that username while he sent that exact picture of him wearing his company's branded apparel. Also, links to how I know it's him, along with pictures he sent her of his motorcycle with the license plate showing, as further proof that it is him. I also included screenshots of him discussing a workplace incident that were time-stamped, along with pieces of dialogue discussing how he had sex with an ex at his place of work, and discussing plans to have sex with her in his office as well. I also included a picture he sent her showing his work laptop with his entire Outlook calendar, along with proprietary information, which he sent to prove he was busy, along with other pictures he took of his workplace with non-consenting employees. I further informed his employer that I will be forwarding all this information to their local law enforcement. And since he had indicated that he would be traveling to the United States soon, I will also forward this to the local office of the FBI, as since my client is a U.S. citizen on U.S. soil, these threats constituted as a federal crime. So that should they continue with his employment and continue with their plans to send him to the United States for work, I will ensure on my behalf of my client that federal law enforcement is waiting for him on arrival, which I will do, as one of the assistant U.S. attorneys for this region is a law school buddy of mine. Since I have his license plate number, I know where he lives and will be contacting his local authorities tomorrow. You dumb MFer, thinking you were hiding around anonymity, thinking you could threaten my friend? It took me 45 minutes to destroy your life. Now here are some relevant comments. One user in the comment section said, "This is fake because it is not a federal crime. Threatening to release private adult content as revenge is not a federal crime. You are absolutely correct. International extortion, however, is. While federal law does not explicitly make this type of revenge a federal crime, a foreign national extorting a U.S. citizen with threats of violating a state law when such threat is transmitted across state borders is absolutely a federal crime." Then another user in the comment section said, "Hi, lawyer here. Going to the FBI wouldn't threaten criminal action. It would threaten deportation, which from the company's perspective may well be worse. Causing corporate counsel a very bad day was kind of the goal. I appreciate the added context. I know exceedingly little about immigration law." Then another user commented and said, "Why did you create a client relationship with someone you know? That is sus and hard to stay ethical." You are absolutely correct. It very much does. And the content of the conversation I had with my friend about exactly what I would do for her in the context of this is not part of this post. Nor would I even be allowed to share them without permission, as it would violate privilege. I am very careful, and I am well aware of the duties and responsibilities it entails. That was a conversation I had between her and myself. The content of that conversation is not subject to, nor relevant to this. Then OP provided more information in the comment section and said, "I am incidentally a labor law attorney and know exactly what to say to get corporate types running scared. Here's your employee photographing other people in the workplace and sharing pictures of the content of his work laptop is a bad look. And that is where I'm getting started. Tomorrow, if I don't hear back from them, I go to, so, you gonna do something about this, or do I take this to your social media pages? I already have proof it's him." Then OP replied to another comment on if the man loses his job, he might post the pictures, and said, "So, yes, quite possibly. I brought this up to her. Her response is she's not terribly concerned if that happens. The pictures, from my understanding, were not terribly identifiable, nor majorly risque. She is not largely concerned with it happening. What angered her was the hubris and gall of it, him thinking he could make these threats without consequences or reprisals. She's not terribly concerned if he does it. She wants him to know she knows who he is. Then another user commented and said, "Just a thought here. Since they're getting the consequences of actions they have only threatened to do, now they have no reason not to do those actions. There's no reason for them not to share your friend's nudes now because there's nothing to lose. I would have considered stacking the evidence for revenge like you did, but then holding it over their head instead of pulling the trigger so soon. Just my thoughts though." I mean, I disagree with that fundamental premise. There's a lot to lose. Years of his life to lose. Adult revenge videos isn't just some bad thing to do, it's a crime. And while threatening it is bad, doing it is worse and carries a much harsher sentence. To the same extent, any prison is a deterrent to any criminal conduct. There's still very much to lose here. Blackmailers and extorters plan on this logic. They get off on putting their victims in that situation. They get off on the fear and anguish. At a certain point, one may decide to stand up and go, "I know who you are. I've already hurt you. I am capable of hurting you even deeper if you follow through with that threat." And accept that they might and act accordingly if they do. She's okay with that and has made peace with the possibility. I stand by to help her pursue the next level should it come to that. Also, he's getting the consequences of his threat. That's a subtle but important distinction. Threatening to carry out this type of revenge is itself a crime. This is not a case of, oh, he's getting his life effed over for something he didn't do. What he did do is already a crime. That's the point here. Threatening it is, in and of itself, a crime. And finally, one user commented and said, "OP, you're in love with her, aren't you?" In a platonic sense, in that she's a very near and dear friend? Sure. In a romantic sense? Nah. I'm quite thoroughly partnered and very much not single. Update post. Next day. Barely 12 hours later. Before I get into the update though, I want to clarify a few things from my original post, primarily about the contact to the employer and why. And some people questioned its truthfulness. While the entire story is true, some details were omitted for various reasons. There was more that she and I had in our possession that did positively identify this individual. So, would a lawyer contact his employer like some stated would not be done? It depends. I did not do what I did on behalf of a client who retained me. I did it as a friend to help a friend. And as her friend who is also a labor and employment law attorney, I knew exactly how to squeeze this. And here's the thing, I was absolutely aware from the onset that the revenge video threat would go nowhere with his employer. Even if I could clearly lay out how the person with this screen name was in fact this person who works at this company, all we had are screenshots. If it was just the revenge video threat, any employer would go like, "Well, thank you for bringing it to our attention, but even if we accept our employee uses this screen name, and we neither confirm nor deny anyone of that name works here, we have no provenance on this. This is just an alleged screenshot of an alleged conversation that could be easily edited and manipulated. Please feel free to pursue this with local authorities, and rest assured, should we be asked to, we will cooperate fully with any law enforcement inquiry, but we have no further comment at this time." Or something like that. And I know that's what they would say, because that's exactly what I would say. An alleged screenshot of an alleged conversation that was allegedly sent under an alleged username that is allegedly one of our employees? Whatever, dude. Call the cops. If you're worried about it, we'll answer them honestly if they come to us. The issue wasn't the revenge video threat, it was the picture of the contents of the work laptop, because that can't be faked. There's no way for her or me to create a false image of the actual proprietary information on his work computer unless he sent it. There's no way for me or her to have possession of images taken of his coworkers without their consent unless he sent them. The proof here wasn't that this person broke the law, it's that he sent pictures of company employees and property, which would absolutely be verifiable by their IT department that yes, this is absolutely his laptop. That's what would get him fired. So I advised my friend not to block him, to sit back and wait and not respond to anything, but let him dig himself in deeper. And respond he did. Update. 1 hour later, he's been fired. So, with now definitive proof that the individual in the online conversation is in fact this person, we'll forward it to all the local authorities in his country, along with his license plate number. They're more than capable of getting his home address. Now, here are some more relevant comments. One user said, how did he respond? He said a lot of, how could you? And I didn't mean it, and I didn't even do anything. Then another user commented and said, I can't believe people didn't understand the proof you sent to the company. As soon as I saw that he sent pictures of company property and employees, I knew he was fired. I admit, I was a little confused by the whole no lawyer would ever do that from some people. Seriously? You hurt a friend and hand me a way to screw with you? And you think I won't press that button as hard as I can? What is it you people think we do? Then another user commented and said, I can 100% believe this. One of my best friends from college is an attorney. He's basically Bruce Banner. You do not want to make him angry. This is literally something I can see him doing with a huge smile on his face. I am amused overall with people talking like, that's not what an attorney would do. Send an email? Dude, that's the first thing we do 90% of the time. Then another user replied to that comment and said, and 75% of that 90%, you need to take no further action. Absolutely. 1, this is what happened. 2, this is what I expect you to do about it. 3, this is what I'm going to do if you don't. Option 3 is going to be way more unpleasant for you than option 2. So strongly consider option 2, or I'm going to make that decision for you and you are not going to like that. The vast majority of the work that lawyers do is just sending an email, discussing options, and coming to a mutually acceptable outcome. Most times, a strongly worded email from a lawyer is enough to get the outcome wanted. That's most of what we do. Then another user commented and said, like, I could kinda understand if maybe it was just a client, but this is a friend, and he handed it to you on a silver platter. How can you say no to that? I'm not entirely sure what people think lawyers do, cause this seems par for the course for me. Yeah, I never said I was a criminal attorney, or even a civil tort attorney. What I am is a labor and employment law enforcement attorney for the government, which means I know exactly how to make a company squirm. I am absolutely and deeply aware nothing I had was evidence enough for a criminal case. It didn't need to be. I'm not law enforcement, but I knew exactly what I was holding on to and exactly how to make sure his employer knew there was no way this ended up with him having a job, because that's what I do. And I had enough to make it very, very clear to them that this ended in one way. And then finally, OP made one final comment on what it's like being a lawyer and how the media has warped it and said, well, that's sort of the thing. I was absolutely acting as her lawyer, but I was doing so in a way that actual lawyers do, and not what people think lawyers do. Most of what lawyers do isn't courtroom theatrics. At the end of the day, a lawyer is basically a professional, very bad day threatener. Because the sad reality is, most people, even those with legitimate grievances and reasonable expectations, will be bullied, ignored, attacked, and harassed for trying to get their legitimate grievances resolved. Because it's easier and cheaper to do that to those who have no resources to fight back. Because let's say you do harm to someone and cost them $10K in damages, and they come to you telling you they want their $10K in damages. When you know they don't have the knowledge or resources to fight you on this, it's a sound financial move to just go, no, what are you gonna do about it? And the answer is us. We are what they do about it. And 90% of what lawyers do is just be the lawyer has entered the chat guy. Because again, we're really, really good at giving someone a very bad day. In a very, okay, I'm going to give you 2 options. Option 1 is you sit the hell down, shut up, listen to what I'm going to tell you, then do what I tell you to do. What's option 2, you ask? Well, all this is me being nice. Option 2 is I start being way less nice. So be a good little boy and do what you're told, or I go with option 2. And when I'm done with option 2, you're going to think back on this moment and really, really wish you went with option 1. Because I assure you, as much as option 1 is going to hurt, option 2 is going to really, really hurt. Or maybe it won't. Maybe you'll get lucky. Roll those dice if you really want to. But don't say I didn't warn you, because as a reminder, I'm being nice right now. This is me nice. You have 5 minutes to pick option 1, or I pick option 2 for you. Tick-tock, and then I do something like that. So, I was absolutely acting as a lawyer here. I was just doing what most lawyer work actually is, which is really just explaining here's what you need to do to avoid having a very bad day. So I'm gonna be real with you guys, I'm glad I don't have to read any more law or legal stuff anymore. And as for the story, which I feel like was only 20% of what we just read/heard, OP helped a friend, and OP was a lawyer and was in the position to do something and did something about it. And I feel like he explained the law in a rather understandable way for people who aren't as informed or knowledgeable of the law, which is most people, let's be honest. He gave some good insight, some good advice, gave his reasoning, and said, yeah, you just messed up, sir. It took me 45 minutes to ruin your life, and then just rolled with it. But anyway, what do you guys think? Next story. Story number 2. Am I wrong for being uncomfortable with my wife being friends with her friend after something she accused me of? My wife and I have this mutual friend, ex-friend for me, let's call her Kate, who we both knew independently and introduced us. Over the years, Kate and I drifted apart, but still talked frequently. She's always been more of my wife's friend than me, best friend from childhood, etc., so it's never really bothered me. A few years ago, someone tangentially part of our friend group that I only semi-knew confided in Kate that I solicited her for nudes. This person I had only talked to maybe once or twice, and it was only ever about her art. Although it's worth mentioning she has a good side hustle drawing hentai, all I ever really said was she was talented at it and I liked her art. I guess one of the pieces I particularly liked was a self-portrait. I won't get too into the details, but it looked nothing like her and was an anime girl, so I'm not sure how I would know that. Kate told my wife about this, who spent a week being upset about it before telling me. I showed her the chats we had, and that was the end of it. Edit. I'll add that what I said about the self-portrait was something along the lines of, holy crap, this one's perfect. The lighting and the figure are really hot. You should be doing this as a day job. She apparently only mentioned it in passing to Kate as interesting, her words apparently. Kate took it upon herself to tell my wife about it. When my wife confronted the friend, she didn't think I was trying to get nudes or anything, but thought I knew it was a self-portrait. A few months later, Kate decided to take it upon herself to then tell my wife I asked to see pictures of her feet. Admittedly, I have a foot fetish, something my wife divulged to her, which I'm not particularly cool with, but I'm not super ashamed of it or anything, so I don't care at all that much. The conversation Kate, in my opinion, misconstrued it was her venting about how frustrating and objectifying it is that she feels like every guy wants to see her naked. And all I did was sympathize with that and said something along the lines of, yeah, I mean, I'll admit there's a split-second intrusive thought about that I'll get when I meet people, but it's probably some caveman lizard brain stuff. When my wife brought it up, I again showed her the messages, and she agreed it was a misunderstanding. Although when she brought it back up to Kate, trying to mediate the situation rather than defending it as a misunderstanding, Kate was adamant I was subtly fishing for nudes and feet pictures. My wife didn't ask for this, but I let her go through all the messages again, and on my phone and computer, and she found nothing. Kate decided to cut contact with me, and I haven't heard from her since. Edit. Here is the exact text conversation I had with Kate. I'm just so sick of it. Like that one guy from work I told you about, the mentor guy. He offers to take me to a place he knows to find something to wear to the presentation we're giving next week. So I go with him and we're looking, and he keeps joking that we should look at lingerie. Like, huh? What is it with men? Like, is it all, oh, a woman must see their boobs? WTF? Is that the dude who offered to pay for the extra e-learning stuff? Yes. I thought he was genuinely being nice, but I guess not. Yet another in a long line of men who just want to see me naked. Is it all men? Like, I don't get it. It's so freaking exhausting. I mean, I've had the passing, she's attractive, I wonder what she looks like underneath her clothes, but they're more intrusive thoughts than anything I'd ever actively pursue because I'm not a monster. Exactly. I have the same thoughts too, but sometimes it's like, I don't go around asking to see every hot guy naked. Maybe that's what he's hoping for. He has a wife too, so it's like, what? And that is the end of the conversation. I'll see Kate from time to time. Wife will have her over, or they will be talking on Discord. I'll be polite and say hello, but she will turn her back from me or very blatantly ignore me. Which is fine. If that's what she wants to do, then so be it. But there was one time that particularly pissed me off. They were sitting out back, and I had come through to bring in groceries and put some stuff away in our shed. She had sandals on, and when she saw me, she asked my wife if she could borrow a pair of socks, which my wife obliged. Putting it bluntly, I'm uncomfortable with her being friends with Kate. My wife doesn't have many friends though, as she suffers from pretty bad mental health issues and doesn't get out much. And I don't want to be some controlling a-hole telling her who she can and can't be friends with. I just hate feeling like I have to be on guard when she's around. And I particularly hate that my wife, who agreed it was a misunderstanding on Kate's part and probably poor wording on mine, didn't defend me. I haven't told her to stop being friends with Kate, but I have mentioned that maybe she shouldn't invite Kate around if I'm home. Or if we're going somewhere and Kate is there, I'll stay home. My wife says I'm just making the situation more awkward and making things uncomfortable for her that she's her best friend and I'm her husband. For context, sometime before this, I had a friend who expressed concern that my wife might be telling me she didn't want me to go out and see friends anymore. This was on me, as the relationship was new. I had a new job and wasn't really fond of going out to bars anymore and never communicated this. He was particularly disrespectful about it, and I cut him off without question. I don't expect her to cut her off, but I would at minimum appreciate her telling Kate off when she does particularly disrespectful things. Am I in the wrong here? Then in the comment section, OP provided some more additional information and said, I'm starting to realize that, unfortunately. Why is your wife telling Kate stuff like your foot fetish in detail? Apparently, it's because women talk about these things. I've been told this by past girlfriends too. It's terrible, but I don't care that much. Why is she stewing about this for a week before asking you about it? I think this is mostly her mental health. She grew up in a really abusive home and has trouble communicating things because she was never taught how. She's in therapy for it though, and has been better about it since the incident. Why does she continue to be friends with someone like this? I assume for the same reason as above. They've been close friends since they were 4 or 5. Why is Kate starting conversations with you about how every man wants her, then trying to turn it against you? Kate and I were good friends before I ever met my wife, so this hasn't ever been uncommon, to be fair. The venting, not the being weird about me thing. Update. So, I ended up showing my wife the original post because we had another argument about Kate. She read through it and some of the comments. I think she had a bit of a come to Jesus moment as she came and sat down and agreed that Kate was being weird about this whole situation. We talked it out and I admitted that I wasn't comfortable with Kate anymore and wouldn't stand in the way of them being friends, but I don't want her coming around the house anymore. So she agreed that she would 1. Not bring Kate here anymore, and 2. Have a talk with Kate about what her problem is. Over the long weekend, we decided to forego our usual tradition of going to one of our parents for a big meal and just stayed in and ordered takeout. Wife and Kate made plans to hang out too, which was fine as I had some personal hobby stuff I wanted to log some time on. Kate apparently did not take being told that she can't come over when I'm home very well because she sent me a long message about how I'm controlling and abusive. Wife snapped and called her. They argued on the phone for a while. I didn't listen or anything, but wife told me she set Kate straight and basically told her she needs to cut the crap and apologize to me or she'll cut out Kate. After midnight on Sunday, I got my apology from Kate. It seemed pretty heartfelt and sincere, but I just said, thank you for the apology. Please understand, I'm fine with you and my wife being friends, but I would prefer to continue just being pleasant with each other. She didn't respond right away and I went to sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night to pee and saw that she had responded, and this is where it got odd. She sent a photo of her legs with her feet in the frame in front of the mirror, so I was sure to see all of her feet. It seemed intentional to me, honestly. One foot had a heel and the other was bare. She accompanied this with the message, "What do you think? Yes or no?" I woke up my wife to show her because I didn't want this too to be blown out of context by her. My wife took a minute to comprehend what was happening and concluded she probably meant to send that to her since they get each other's opinions on outfits and shoes. A bit weird to do at 1 a.m. IMO, but made sense. I replied, sorry, did you mean to send that to me? In the morning, she had unsent the photo and message and said nothing else. Later in the day, she called my wife and said she accidentally sent me a picture of her new shoes and her feet were in them and wanted my wife to confirm that I did not save the image to use later. I think this is where my wife started piecing together what some of the comments were saying about Kate being someone who likes to stir the pot. So, my wife put the phone on speaker and flat out asked if Kate did it on purpose. Kate got angry and asked how my wife could think that. Then my wife just said, "Because you know he has a foot fetish, and you sent him a foot guy's equivalent of a full-body nude." Then Kate demanded my wife check my phone because she was having a panic attack over the thought of me jerking off to her feet. My wife rarely gets angry or petty. It's just not who she is. But my wife basically replied to that with, Kate, you should have said something sooner. I thought it was an apology photo for him, so I already jerked him off while he looked at it." And after that, there was a huge hours-long argument that followed. But the TLDR is, Kate is no more. Apparently, their friend group has wanted to stop dealing with her BS for some time, and all jumped on this to cut her out. Sayonara, Kate, you effing drama queen. Hey, Kate, long time no see. Can you do me a favor though, real quick? Yeah, can you hold this L? Get this woman out of here trying to sabotage the marriage, trying to be under the guise of, oh, the girly bestie, blah, blah, blah. Foot fetish, sabotage, marriage ruiner, best friend, BS, stupid lady. I hate Kate, all right? I don't even need to get into it. We already know she's a bad person, and she just wants to stir the pot. But what I am happy about is that OP showed the post to the wife, and the wife was like, all right, let me read this. And it seems like she seemingly took the post and the comments into consideration and listened to her husband, and then it just clicked to her like, oh my God, Kate is a terrible person. Let me get rid of her. Sorry, it's a little late right now, so I'm kind of getting loopy, but you know what? I'm glad that she read the post because we've had instances before where OP will make a post and then the friend or the partner or whoever will read the post and be like, why are you sharing our details? What's wrong with you? Even though like they'll make it private or change names or hide any sensitive information, which I can understand, but you know, Reddit can be a valuable resource in these instances. And that seemed to be the case here. I really need to go to my 29M fiance, 28F of 4 years, randomly claimed I abused her and called the police. This came completely out of the blue. I honestly don't know what happened. A couple of days ago, my girlfriend, who I lived with, left our apartment while I was at work, claimed to her family and mutual friends that I'd been physically abusing her, and blocked me on everything. I have no idea what's going on. There wasn't any major problems in our relationship that I could see, and we just slept with each other last night, consensually. The very last time I spoke to her before all of this happened, she was perfectly fine, kissed me goodbye before I went to work, and everything was normal. Then I got a call from my dad towards the end of the day, asking me calmly if I've been hitting my girlfriend. I didn't know what he was talking about, and then she told me. I rushed home, and she had gotten all of her stuff and is staying either with her family or a friend of hers. My Facebook account is blowing up, and I have no idea what to do. None of what is being said is true, and I don't know if someone is just playing a cruel joke on me. A few people even mentioned that the police were called, but I haven't heard anything as of yet. The last major argument we had was probably in February, around Valentine's Day. We were going through some financial trouble. The stress got to us, and we were both getting upset with each other over poverty, household things. She was my best friend, the person I could rely on to be there for me, and the person I would be there for always, no matter what. We were definitely planning on getting married. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. Her family had basically accepted me into the family. I was close with both her mom and her dad. I only called them both once each. Neither of them answered my calls. I called my, ex just twice, no answer. She blocked me on every social media platform of hers that I know of. I asked a couple of friends, but they are being distant with me, just one-word answers or ghosting me. What the hell is happening here? We'd always been upfront with each other and honest, and our communication was stellar. Update. Okay, so this is going to be a weird update. I'm sorry if you guys thought this was going to be anything interesting. A friend came forward and told me that apparently my dumbass fiance decided to play a prank on me. She had the bright idea of leaving the house for a couple of days to set up a surprise birthday party for me set for this weekend. I don't know what the F she was thinking, nor do I even really know the full story yet. She's not really the prank-playing type, and I guess she thought this would be hilarious or something. It looks like a majority of those friends who were acting distant were in on it. After I started being upfront and honest with showing people my text messages with her, as this sub suggested, one of them told her that this wasn't cool and that if she didn't come clean, then he would. Well, she didn't come clean, and he came forward. I guess that's why nobody was answering their text messages? Anyway, I texted her and I told her that I knew and asked her what the hell she was thinking. She started blowing up my phone apologizing. She said her prank just went too far and spiraled out of control when it got to social media, and that she didn't know how to come clean when she realized that it crossed a line. She also said that she didn't mean to let it come out that I was abusing her, and that she just wanted to make it seem like she left me, and that the abuse stuff was a rumor started by some other people who were not in on the joke. I just didn't really respond to her. I left and went to my parents' house before she got back home. My family now thinks she's an effing moron, so her relationship with them is ruined right before our marriage, so that's great. Our mutual friends are now split in half, with half of them thinking she's an idiot, and the other half feeling God knows what about the situation. I am frankly embarrassed and feel stupid for wasting everyone's time and dragging them into my relationship with my fiance. I don't really know where to go from here. I don't know if I should call off the wedding or postpone it and try to work out what the hell went through her mind. I'm sorry if this isn't the ending to the story you were all hoping for. I'm having drinks and will be here all night feeling sorry for myself and answering comments for as long as I'm awake with this Jameson. Update number 2. So firstly, thanks for all of your input. I read and considered every single reply. First, I'll update you, then I'll tie up some loose ends from the comments in the previous post. I want to apologize for the bluntness of this post ahead of time, because despite your comments about me being calm and level-headed, I'm actually quite upset about the entire situation. And I feel like me sitting and thinking about it is only marinating this anger and making it more juicy and flavorful. As for the update, I spoke to her in person after my first update. From her perspective, her original idea was to make it look like she just got mad or something, grabbed a few things, and left to her friend's house, where she was going to have the party thrown. Her friend has a really nice house that's perfect for a 20 to 30 person get-together. She was with her 2 friends and made an off-the-cuff remark when her friend said, "What are you going to say when he asks why?" And then my girlfriend said, "I don't know, I'll probably tell him that I feel like he got too serious when we had sex," or something like that. Then her other friend who was with her immediately took it to social media without the other 2 girls knowing, and then when they checked their phones later on that day, it was already a dumpster fire. I said, "Great, all that is understandable. Just one question. Why did you then block me and then refuse to answer my calls? Because that seemed pretty freaking intentional to me." She said because she didn't want to throw her idiot friend under the bus and thought it would all go away if she just threw the party, and she hadn't realized how far it all went so quickly. I thanked her for telling me, and then I called off the wedding entirely. She cried, I cried, it was a dang mess. She asked where we go from here. I told her, I don't know. I don't even know if the relationship is over yet, but I know that the engagement is over, and that if I decide to give it another chance, at the bare minimum, we need to build my trust for her from the ground up, if not the entire relationship. And now I have to decide if I want that. Do I want to spend another 4 years being undecided? If I'm being honest with myself, I imagine it taking another couple of years before I can trust her again. Do I want to get married and start thinking about having children at 35, 36, close to 40? I told her that I have a lot to think about. I spoke to her dad last night. We shared a case of beers and had a conversation that lasted about 5 hours. My ex, not sure, hasn't spoken to anyone and has basically been locked up in her old bedroom for now. She's been crying a lot. I do believe that she's genuinely remorseful about all of this, which complicates things. Her dad caught wind of the situation on Facebook, but learned what was really going on maybe like an hour later. He'd gotten my calls but hadn't returned them because he called his daughter first. She told him, and he just didn't know what to say to her. He told me that she is not truly stupid, but that she has a history of sometimes not thinking about things before she says them, and the impact her offhand remarks can have. He said this is the worst it's ever snowballed, but she's had situations in the past where she says something stupid or insulting and doesn't realize the impact of what she said until hours later when the other person blows up over it. So, that's it. I still have a lot to think about. I know a lot of you guys are telling me that I have no balls for not literally tossing her out into traffic and laughing about it or something weird like that, but you have to understand that I still love her and have loved her for a few years now. Right now, I'm leaning toward moving on, but you're going to have to empathize with me here. As for my reputation, nobody thinks I am an abuser. It's firmly out there now. Her reputation took a much more significant and lasting hit. I haven't lost any friends except for the idiot social media girl, whose reputation did take a severe hit. Nobody called the cops, all the other posts about it have been deleted, everything is good. There's no real need for me to get a lawyer and sue anybody. My family agrees with a lot of you. They're 2 seconds away from slapping me upside the head for not immediately kicking her to the curb. Just give me some time. I'm not going to make another update post because I've already wasted too much of your time with this BS. But maybe I'll just update this post in a few days after I've decided what to do. Oh man, I hate pranks anymore, alright? Pranks have been ruined since 2016 YouTube, and after that, I don't like them. But this was just incredibly moronic and stupid, and not answering the calls because she didn't want to put the best friend under the bus, and pretending to leave, abuse or not, and just... what's going on here, man? All right, the dad says she's not stupid, but she has a history of this, but that's just... What would you guys do? Would you keep her? Because, you know, like he said, he had, I don't quite remember, what, 2, 3, 4 years in the relationship? That's a long-term relationship. They, you know, had a wedding, right? That was his fiance, not just his girlfriend. So, I mean, would you, you know, work it out? Or would you just be like, I'm done? I'm curious. I don't know what I would do. I'm so baffled by the stupidity here. Like, I need to wrap my head around that first before I can even make another decision afterwards. But anyway, next story. Story number 2. My wife, 37F, and I, 38M, went to adopt our teenage foster daughter, but father-in-law, 64M, is furious about it. My wife and I have 2 biological teenage sons, one older and one younger than our foster daughter. We have been fostering kids for many years, but the goal has always been to reunify the kids with their parents, which has happened successfully each time, until now. 2 years ago, we took in our foster daughter, now mid-teens. She has been through a lot and was labeled as a troubled kid and not adoptable. I won't go into details, but the issue in this matter is that there are images of her going around amongst a certain community from before we took her in. We were informed by authorities about all of this before, so it's not like this came as a surprise after we got to know her. I'm not going to lie, it has not been easy. Our families have seen us struggle, but almost everyone has been supportive. The first 5 to 6 months were the hardest. She didn't trust us, and she was angry at the world, rightfully so. Then one random night, I got up in the middle of the night and unintentionally ended up scaring her to death, and she had a full-blown panic attack. She was okay after a little while, but it was like something clicked for her that night. It was like she realized that we were on her side, and we watched her change from this angry and sad little girl to the ambitious young teenager we know today. It started with her telling us thank you for everything we did, small things like driving her to practice, and she said it with a smile on her face. It was so amazing to see her feeling better and not so lonely anymore. From there, everything changed. She made new friends and got a lot closer to my sons, especially the older one. Her grades went from failing multiple classes to getting straight A's. Not because we were nagging her, but because she wanted to. Each member of our household has developed a good and strong relationship with her, and the love we have for this girl cannot be put into words. We have reached that cosmic connection. She still struggles with a few things, which is totally fair after all she's been through, but she is working on it, and we are supporting her in every way we can. Overall, she's doing amazing. She's so strong, and I'm very proud of her. We've made the decision to fight the system, to change their verdict from not adoptable to available for conditional adoption, because we want to commit to her for life. We want to adopt her. Last month, we got the call that they changed their verdict, and we sent in our papers that were already ready, and things are looking very promising. The thing is, we haven't told her yet. She knows that she is now adoptable, but we haven't asked her if she wants us to officially adopt her yet. My wife and I have talked to our sons about it, and they are fully on board. We have talked to my parents, our brothers and sisters, and their spouses. All of them have a good relationship with our daughter, and every single one of them is so supportive of our decision and willing to fully welcome our daughter into our family. Then, there is my wife's parents. Mother-in-law hasn't been awful, I guess, but maybe it's because I'm comparing what she said to what father-in-law said. We told them about our plan and asked them about their opinion. Mother-in-law asked if we were sure, as our daughter doesn't quite fit in. My wife and I didn't understand at all, since our daughter has a very similar personality as we and our sons do. But it turns out she's concerned about the visual side of it, as she's clearly not our biological child, and people will start asking questions. The thing is, my wife, myself, and our sons are very tall. Our daughter is not. She is tiny compared to us and has a similar eye color, but not the exact same. All 5 of us have the same skin tone and colored and textured hair. Not that I think this matters at all, but the stupidity of it is unreal. Apart from the height, she could pass as our biological daughter, so I'm starting to think this is a lame excuse for something else. I told her that people would ask questions no matter what, because even if our daughter was the spitting image of my wife, it's not like she suddenly gave birth to a teenager 2 years ago. And the answer to any question is very simple. She's adopted. Ta-da! It's not like it could ever become a secret now, so I don't get it. Mother-in-law didn't say much after that, but it was very clear she was not on board. Father-in-law had not said anything, but he didn't seem excited at all. I asked for his opinion, and he just stared at us for a minute, and then he said, "Don't do this to yourself and our family." It's safe to say I was confused, but I had no idea what to say. After a few more seconds, he went off. He started talking about their family name, and he didn't want that ruined by a little harlot, except he didn't use the word harlot, if you know what I mean, and what people would think if they saw these images floating around on the internet. I was stunned. My wife couldn't find any words either and started crying before she just left. I did not say a word while father-in-law finished ranting, but 1,000 thoughts went through my head. Eventually, he stopped talking and I still had trouble finding any words to say. I just told him, "You are sick," and I left too. My wife is destroyed after hearing what her father thinks about our daughter. We have no idea how they know about these images as we haven't told anyone about it. I'm 100% certain my wife didn't tell them as their relationship is not that great. My wife is closer to my mother than her own, so that wouldn't make sense. We have tried to hide this from the kids since this happened, but my older son sensed something was very wrong and asked about it. I told him our conversation about adopting our daughter didn't go very well and they weren't supportive. He wanted to know why. I told him I couldn't tell him, but that it was serious and I promised to talk to him about it in a few years when he's an adult. And I assured him that our daughter didn't do anything wrong. Our plans haven't changed and that it's father-in-law who's being unreasonable. My son told me that our daughter told him a few months ago that she didn't think the in-laws liked her very much, especially father-in-law. This happened 2 days ago and we haven't spoken to them since. I'm not sure if I even want to try, to be honest. For me, this is going no contact worthy. I want nothing to do with them. My wife is in pieces and has mentioned that she doesn't want them in her life after this. This has tainted our adoption experience for sure. I'm afraid though that if we piss off father-in-law even more, that he will start talking to our family about those images. I do realize that he will look like a pig in everyone's eyes, but I would like to spare our daughter from everyone knowing about what's out there. I usually talk to my mother about heavy stuff in life, but I cannot talk to her about this without feeling like I'm exposing my daughter by telling my mother more than I want to for my daughter's sake. So, internet strangers, I have no idea what to do from here. How do I go about the situation with father-in-law without creating more mess than absolutely necessary for my daughter? Edit. Just to be very clear, there's no doubt in our minds that we still want to ask for our daughter's permission to adopt her. Our relationship with our daughter will not change no matter what father-in-law does or does not do. I realized from the first couple of comments that it became unclear after the father-in-law incident. Sorry about that. Edit number 2, 4 hours later. I'm glad to see I'm not the only one hopefully reading too much into this. I think you have verified I am not crazy. Wife and I had a brief talk after I posted and have decided to talk to her brothers and sister first about father-in-law's comments. It will be a hard conversation, but it needs to happen. Before I could get to it, my wife told me she wants to report the situation with her father knowing about the images of our daughter. Right now, we don't know what that looks like, but it has simply not been possible for him to gain this knowledge legally. There is a culprit for sure, but we will leave that to the authorities for now. Thank you for giving me a reality check, and thank you for your encouragement. We need it right now. Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "Is he religious in a religion that looks down on sex?" Because that's pretty much the only non-creepy explanation for why he might actually act this way. Either way, I'd be contemplating reporting to the authorities. Religious? Yes. The no sex before marriage kind of thing, but I wouldn't say that's an overly extreme opinion compared to other people I know in their church. The big difference has to be that they have heard of a thing called compassion. He must have skipped that day of Sunday school or something. In his rant, he kept saying our daughter is dirty, as if she did this, when in reality, this was done to her. I don't get it really. And yes, we did decide to involve the authorities. Then in the comment section, OP elaborated on the child welfare system and how messy things are with children being the targets. We actually took a course about this shortly after we took our daughter in. We were told so many predictable things and still thought, we got this. We didn't. It was so hard watching how hard she was on herself. She had no confidence, no self-worth, and she was literally scared of us. She has come such a long way and everything seems so perfect. but the reality is that her view on sexuality is still really messed up. Thankfully, she is comfortable enough with both me and my wife to be quite open about it. If it's fun boy talk, she talks to me, and if it's more serious, she turns to my wife. Most kids in the system are not lucky enough to have the respect your own body talk, even once. It's really sad. Then OP elaborated on the biological parents' rights and the adoption process in his state. No, the parents' rights were terminated many years ago. To my knowledge, not adoptable is not a legal label anywhere, but I could be wrong. In our agency, my understanding is available for adoption means their caseworker is actively looking for adoptive parents for these kids. Not adoptable are kids that the agency deems to be too risky to place permanently with a family because of one thing or another, or kids that do not want to be adopted. So, their caseworker is not looking for adoptive parents for these kids. Our daughter was in this group because she was completely closed off and non-cooperative. She was angry and hated everyone and everything and did not want to be adopted. Available for conditional adoption kids is when the caseworker looks for adoptive parents, but the kids usually have some sort of ongoing issues and are harder to find parents for. In our case, it's really important to follow up on our daughter for years to come because, for example, the risk of her becoming depressed or suicidal later because of her past is relatively very high. If we adopt her both, we and her therapist are required to report back to the agency every 4 months about how she is doing until she's 18. And if she's not doing well and we're not getting her the help she needs, the agency has the legal right to intervene. Oh, and for the adoption to even go through to begin with, there are several extra requirements for us as a family compared to what is standard. Update. 6 days later, I wasn't prepared for my last post to blow up like it did. I'm so thankful for everyone's support. It can be hard to see how messy a situation is when you're in the middle of it and so emotionally involved as I am, so I appreciate everyone pointing out a lot of worrying details. These last few days have been a whirlwind. I have realized how messed up the situation is, but at the same time, people around us have shown how far they are willing to go to protect our little girl and how loved she is. I got a lot of questions and this post will be a long one, but I will answer as best as I can. I'll break things up for a little clarity. First, the in-laws and the wife's siblings. My wife and I decided to cut off the in-laws completely. There is no coming back from this. We talked to her siblings about it to give them our side before they hear father-in-law's messed up version. We told them what our daughter has been through, without giving details, of course. They don't normally show emotion that much, it's just how they were raised, but even my oldest brother-in-law, who is the toughest of them, had to dry his eyes a few times during the conversation. Understandably, we told them about what happened with the in-laws when we talked to them about adopting our daughter, and they were pissed. They agreed that this needed to be reported, and brother-in-law wanted to be included in what was going on from there. As for the father-in-law and the legal situation, long story short, both mother-in-law and father-in-law went in for questioning. For now, it looks like this happened through gossip. I'm not exactly sure if the authorities have figured out all the details yet, but I will stand back and let them do their job. Some of you mentioned that child victims of these sorts of crimes are often moved to new environments for their own safety and protection. That is the case for our daughter. But if there are leaks in the system, all that work will be for nothing, and the children who are promised a second chance at a normal life will have their whole lives ruined once again. That means this is a much bigger issue than this one incident. Law enforcement and investigators are taking this very seriously, and we do trust them. As for my father-in-law's explanation and electronics, my brother-in-laws and I tried to talk to father-in-law about his opinion of my daughter. He did repeat what he said the other day and doubled down. Father-in-law did use God and the Bible as a lot of reasons for his opinion. I don't want to blame religion because I know a lot of religious people who are amazing human beings, and none of them would ever say gross stuff like this. Oldest brother-in-law gave father-in-law a lecture. He was told that it's more than enough that father-in-law's children think he is a misogynistic POS. They don't need to think he's also a predator prying on young children. There may or may not have been a threat or two mentioned about exposure. Seriously, this man, the brother-in-law, is the calmest, most loving human being I have ever met. Every child in the family loves this guy. I have known him for almost 20 years, but that night he showed a side of him I have never seen before. I would have pissed myself if he was in my face like he was in father-in-law's. Eventually, father-in-law willingly gave law enforcement every single electronic to clear his name. Even every VHS tape was given up. If everything is clear, he would be given everything back, so hopefully he doesn't have anything to worry about. As for my lovely wife, I'm not gonna lie, she is struggling. She is in pieces after her parents' reaction. They are wrong in every way possible and have been wrong in many other ways throughout the years, but it seems like this was her breaking point. Like she realized that there is no hope that her parents will ever become the parents she wished for. My parents have always known her relationship with her parents wasn't great, so they stepped up for her a little differently than my siblings' partners. My wife has a good relationship with my parents, and I did give them a little heads up that there is stuff going on and my wife is struggling. My mother has been coming by every day just to check in, to talk to my wife, and give her an extra hug. She made dinner a few times when we were busy, and my father has been giving the kids rides to either school or practice and games every day. They have taken a huge load of stress off my wife and me, so we could concentrate on what is going on right now without worrying about the kids. After a few days, we told them how inappropriately my father-in-law had been talking about our daughter. My parents knew about our daughter's essay, but nothing more and no details, and that we are cutting them off for good. My parents are awesome, and they love my wife almost more than me and promised her to step in, not just for the kids, but for her as well. So in time, I believe my wife will be okay. We will get through this together. As for my wife and her siblings, I don't like the saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. My wife and her siblings are the total opposites of their parents. They are amazing people, and they are raising their kids to be amazing people. Their parents suck, but they came together and broke the circle. Sometimes the apple rolls away from the tree. As for the rest of the extended family, my wife and I are both close with all of our siblings, and we do live in a relatively small enough town that everyone knows everything about everyone because of gossip. So, we sort of had to include my siblings and our siblings' spouses. We told them a very short version of what was going on. That yes, we are cutting the in-laws off because they are not supportive of our decision to adopt our daughter. And father-in-law had said some very rude and inappropriate stuff about our daughter, and mother-in-law was on his side. But out of respect for our daughter, to please not ask questions without reasons. And we encouraged everyone to come to us directly if there were any rumors of anything going on. Everyone is very supportive and they agree that our daughter deserves privacy and respect, and that the in-laws are a-holes. Continuing as to why we included so many people in our decision to adopt our daughter, I got a few skeptical but fair questions about why we asked for people's opinions about the adoption. I get the skepticism, and that is partially on me for not explaining that part very well. It was not so much that we wanted our extended family's opinion and approval, but more so that we knew where everyone was in regards to welcoming our daughter as a permanent member of our family. She is in her mid-teens, and we have only known her for 2 years. That's a lot of life to live before coming into our lives. It's not the same as welcoming a baby or a toddler into the family. We never got to take her to the park to play with her brothers and her cousins when she was a child. She wasn't present at family birthdays growing up. We didn't experience her first day of school. Every Christmas Eve, when we were watching Home Alone with our boys growing up, she wasn't there. All of a sudden, there's an extra teenage niece/cousin granddaughter, and that might not come naturally to everyone. Our boys have a close relationship with my parents and their aunts and uncles and cousins, but although everyone has welcomed and loved every single one of our foster kids, everyone knew these kids already had parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins, and our family always respected that. Our daughter has never had any of that. She was truly alone in this world when she came to us. She is now in the process of gaining a crap ton of family that she never had before. That's a lot to take in as a teenager. Our intent is to guide and help her as much as we can in her relationship with everyone in our family. But to do that, we need to know what kind of relationship our family is ready to have with her. That's why we asked them, and we are thankful that they are so welcoming. I know I said my wife isn't very close to her parents, but they did have a relationship before this train wreck started, and they would become our daughter's grandparents. I don't know if it's right or wrong to include them given the relationship wasn't that great to begin with, but I'm glad we did so they had the chance to show their true colors before our daughter got the chance to bond with them as her grandparents. Continuing onto the dark side in general, I'm going to be very vague here. Partially to protect my daughter, and partially because I simply don't have a lot of info. Our daughter was a part of a larger case/circle that was uncovered a few years ago. She went through this hell for years. The FBI was all over it when these people were discovered, and the people behind this case are in prison thanks to them. The problem is that the circles that are distributing the material are very complicated. Even though a lot of the material was found and locked down back then, given the amount of material and the time span, there was just no way they got it all. Sadly, this is the case in most cases when digital material reaches these online circles that distribute it worldwide. I do want to say I have so much respect for the people working on nailing these sick animals, as it is incredibly hard mentally to do what they do. Continuing, our daughter in this train wreck. I have to admit, I don't know what is right and what is wrong to do about informing our daughter about what is going on. But we did ask our caseworker to have a meeting with our daughter's therapist so we can find the best way to go about this together. The four of us have had regular meetings these last 2 years to make sure we are all on the same page and work together. These people are awesome and put their hearts into what they do, so I'm sure we will figure this out as well. As for our daughter's adoption process, after our daughter turned her whole life around and came out of her shell, we noticed more and more how well we fit together as a family. Don't get me wrong, my wife loves our boys, but it has been a whole new experience admiring her bonding with our daughter over girl stuff. I am a real dad jokes kind of dad. While our boys just laugh in my face when I bring my best work, our girl rolls her eyes and scoffs at me while trying to hide a smile. Our boys really know how to wrap their mother around their little finger, while I see right through them. But this girl melts my heart. Her please combined with the puppy eyes and I am sold, while my wife is a hard ass. I guess that's what they mean when they talk about the typical difference between having boys and girls. Anyway, we brought it up with our caseworker last year that we were interested in adopting our girl. She walked us through what that would entail, and we were up for it. Our daughter has been talking to her therapist and her caseworker throughout the process of changing the verdict to available for adoption, and she knows we are wanting to adopt her, and we are only waiting for the last paperwork to go through before we could ask for a court date. And she has told both of them she wants us to adopt her. After all the mess she has been through, it's important to have a sense of control over her own life. So we did make sure she knew it was coming, but at the same time, we wanted to make this really special for her. That's why we chose to do it this way. The day after my post, our caseworker called to let us know that our paperwork had gone through. We arranged a family outing for the 5 of us. I'm not going to give too many details for our daughter's privacy, but we had such a great day. And we asked for her permission, and guess what? She said yes. We laughed, we cried, it was overwhelming. It's finally official. We are adopting her. That same night, my wife and daughter were in the living room talking while I was working in the office. My wife called me into the living room, so I went in there to talk to them. And my girl asked me, "From now on, is it okay if I call you Dad?" Man, I did not expect this. I would be absolutely okay with her to keep using my name, but this is an honor. Of course I said yes, I'd be honored for her to call me Dad. When I dropped her off for practice the next day, it really hit me when she, in front of her friends, all said, "Bye Dad, love you." I may or may not have shed a tear or two on my way home. Now, we are mom and dad to 3. We don't have a court date yet, but it will probably be this summer or maybe this fall. We are thinking about having a huge adoption party when that happens, but our girl will decide what she wants when that time comes. What we do now is that we're looking forward to it regardless. Anyway, continuing on college, if adopted, we have been told our daughter will lose some privileges when it comes to college tuition when we adopt her. I haven't looked too much into it yet, as we are not there yet age-wise, but it's not something we are worrying about. We make more than enough to put all our kids through college. We will look more into that when it becomes relevant. Right now, the adoption is more important than money. Continuing about the adoption and the father-in-law situation. As of now, it doesn't look like father-in-law had access to the content of our daughter. It looks like he's only a misogynistic POS. And because we have gone non-contact, in the adoption process, he is a non-issue. If something dark sees the light of day, it will very possibly play a role in court. That does not mean we don't want him exposed if he is a predator. Our girl's safety is even more important than the adoption, but because we have gone no contact, it is very unlikely our daughter would ever be removed from our care. It would probably only be like a large bump in the road on our way to adoption. Right now, all we can do is cross our fingers and wait for answers. As for our sons, I will say our sons have made our daughter's recovery a whole lot more manageable. Yes, we as then foster parents focused on loving our girl, and we never reprimanded her for acting out because we understood where her pain came from. But she did all the work necessary while we were supportive and gave her a nudge here and there in the right direction. But we feel like our boys have done at least as much for her as we have. They just don't know it. Our boys were not initially informed about our daughter's essay, as there was no reason for it. They were informed about the physical abuse in general, no details, just enough to understand that our girl didn't like to be touched without permission. permission. They were very respectful of her, and our youngest even felt bad for her when he hugged me or my wife in front of her because he felt like she deserved love as well. They will never fully comprehend what our girl has been through, but they will also never understand how much they have helped her by just existing around her. They have shown her what healthy relationships with family look like and what boundaries are. Our older son and our daughter are close in age, and he introduced her at school to his friend group, including her now best friend. She has observed our boys a lot during her time with us, and they have played a huge role in teaching her how to have a worry-free teenage life. This has resulted in them having such a great sibling bond, and that melts my heart. To the few people who predict that our girl will end up pregnant by one of our boys, go outside and listen to the birds sing. Read a book, try out a new hobby. There are a lot of really interesting things in this world other than your family favorite videos on the hub. Anyway, I'm sure I have forgotten a few things, and there are a few questions I cannot answer, especially when it comes to investigations and other legal stuff. And I did change a few benign details to throw people off for privacy reasons to protect our girl. If there is update-worthy stuff later, when the investigations have been concluded, I may give it, but that won't happen for at least several months. For now, I just wanted to update you guys on our girl and assure you that she is okay. Internet strangers, thank you for your support, advice, and encouragement. And most of all, thank you for caring about my girl, my wife, our family, and victims in general. The world is not that bad after all. Now, here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "The amount of tears I have shed over this post. I'm not in a position to foster children, but I am so grateful for people like you and your wife. There's so many terrible people in the system. Every wonderful family like yours keeps a child out of the hands of abusers and predators. Thank you so much for the update. Wishing all the happiness for your family." And then user 2 commented and said, "Congrats on your new daughter. You have navigated this difficult situation with wisdom. You seem like really good people, and I wish your family all the best. I want to be adopted by these people, not because my parents did a bad job or because I hate them, but because I felt so much love from this story, and now I want to be a part of it, and I'm jealous." This really is a beautiful story, by the way. You know, the father-in-law and the mother-in-law were like, "Oh, we're terrible people." And then OP and his wife were like, "Okay, bye." And then anyway, then the story continued, and we got a lot more positives than we did negatives here in tremendous amounts. And then apparently with her puppy dog eyes, the daughter was like, "Hey, can I call you dad now?" And then everyone cried, and the onions started being chopped. I mean, what else is there to say? It's a nice, beautiful story, and as that one comment said, there are unfortunately, families in the system that are not that good, who do end up getting children, but this is seemingly so not one of those families. And I'm glad that the sons are taking well to their daughter, or their sister, pardon me. I'm glad that the mom also gets a girl to, do girl stuff with. It's just a good story, and everything worked out, so I got nothing left to say. But anyway, guys, we are at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and have a very good day.